Hello and welcome back, or welcome if you are new. If you are new, my name is Elena and I am the homeschooling mama to 3 kiddos. I homeschool 9th grade, 3rd grade, and a kind of kinder first special needs. And today I just kind of want to take you on the beginning of our homeschool journey. This is our 9th year homeschooling, and I just wanted to let you know kind of how it all started. So if that's something you'd like to watch, stay tuned and be sure to watch the rest of the video. So my oldest son has this year being the 2021-2022 school year, is entering the 9th grade, and this is also our 9th year beginning homeschooling. He did go to school since he was 3 years old, a public school. Now my oldest was being tested right before he turned 3, and they found that he was had some sensory processing disorders, and then he also was speech delayed. And because of that, the area that we were in at the time, we worked with their regional center, and they suggested that we put him into a special needs program, because at the age of 3, it gets handed over from the regional center to the public school. So we put him in, we kind of just followed along, and we're doing what they had recommended. So when he started school, he would go to these like small classrooms, because it was considered special needs, and they had like 1 teacher and 3 assistants or something like that, 2 to 3 assistants, depending on how many students were there. This turned out to be such a huge blessing for me and my family. We got to know the teachers and the aides, and we really loved them all. They were very communicative with us, they communicated well with us. And my oldest seemed to really enjoy being there, and he really enjoyed his teachers. So we just thought this was a great thing. He was really starting to, we were really starting to understand each other better and help one another, and it just seemed like it was going to be a great fit. Now, after his first year, he had to switch to a different school because I can't remember exactly, but something had happened and they weren't offering the program there, or he had aged out of that particular thing. I don't remember, but he had to switch. And then we switched schools. I think we actually switched schools 2 to 3 times. The last school that we were at, the last public school we were at, his teacher and I would volunteer along with the classroom, and I really adored his teacher. And you can see that she really adored the kids that she was working with, and it was just so great to have that community and to just see your child thriving and being happy and learning and all the good things. But as we were finishing up that last year in kinder, they were retesting him. He had done so well, and they were going to retest him and see if they wanted to continue keeping him in the special needs program, which was the smaller classes and the teachers with the aides, or if they were going to put him what they called mainstream and just pull him out for the classes they felt he needed, which at that time was only speech. This was all fantastic news. I mean, it was great that he was going to be mainstreamed and he was going to go into a bigger classroom and not need so much assistance. To me, it seemed that he was making so much progress that he just didn't need so much hands-on help. And so we were all for that. Now at that time also, we moved. We moved less than 5 miles away from where our home was, and that changed our school district. If you've ever looked at your school district lines, sometimes they can be kind of crazy. Where we were in California at the time, and the lines were just sometimes it didn't make sense, and it was really hard to wrap your mind around it. So we were switching school districts, and I was looking into the school district we were going into and the new neighborhood school he would be attending. That particular school, unfortunately, didn't have very good marks. They were not known for excelling, and it just wasn't one of the best schools. And I understand that that can happen. My heart hurts when I feel like maybe the school and the parents and it all combining is not functioning well for both parties. So we were looking into different options and what we could do. There was another school that was not far from him that we were considering putting him in instead. Here's where things started to get a little murky for us. I had to start making multiple phone calls to the neighborhood school, to the school we were leaving, to the school I wanted to transfer him to, and to the district. So I was making lots of calls, and each time I was making calls, somebody was giving me a different answer. So the school we were leaving was saying, this is how it should go, this is how your process should be, and here are the people you should contact. So starting with that list, I contacted our neighborhood school and I was speaking with them and asking them if we were looking to transfer, what would that look like? I also was telling them that he would be mainstreaming, and it seemed like the more information I was giving, the more hesitant they were to kind of work with us. At one point, after speaking with so many different people from the district and the different schools, at one point a woman told me, you know, we can just bus your child wherever we want. That didn't sit well with me. And by the time I had got to that point, honestly, I was ready to lose my cool. I was done speaking with people. I was so incredibly frustrated that nobody could give me a straight answer, it felt like. I often say I don't care if it was like the same crappy story, as long as it was the same crappy story. Just give me the same answer. The fact that I got so many different answers kind of showed me that maybe they didn't know a clear-cut answer. It felt like because I was getting so many different answers that it was just too chaotic, or maybe too many special circumstances. Especially now in our world, things are so crazy and chaotic, and it's just hard for schools to keep up with it all. But because we were getting so many different stories and it was becoming increasingly frustrating for me, I called my husband one day after I had spoken with a woman who I don't know, I could have caught her on a really bad day. But by that time, like I said, I was just tired of the different stories. So I called him out of frustration, and I was like venting and saying, I'm just so frustrated. I don't know what to do. This is my baby. At that time, my oldest was our only, and he was the moon and the stars and everything to me. And just hearing that they didn't know where they were going to put him, they didn't know what was going to happen, and all the unsureness of it, I just started feeling something in my gut that this was not right and this was not for us. So when I called my husband out of frustration, I can remember exactly where I was. I was in a parking lot, parked, and I called him, and I remember crying out to him and just being like, this is not the way it's supposed to be. And he suggested, why don't you do what your friends do? So let me backtrack on that for just a second. At that time, we belonged to a smaller church, and in that church, there was a huge homeschooling community. The homeschooling community was not like sponsored or a part of the church. There just seemed to be that there were a lot of women and families that attended that homeschooled their children. And now we were friends with them. We had done lots of play dates and things like that. For us, we had to do after school time things. But I had gotten together with the other women, you know, during school hours, and I've been around their children. I had just seen how loving and great it was. This is not to say public school children aren't loving. They most certainly are. I just didn't really, I just really enjoyed seeing how the moms and the kids worked together, and how it just worked with their days, having their kiddos with them all day. So when my husband mentioned, why don't you do what your friends do? I kind of was taken aback, and I was like, do you mean homeschooling? Because in my mind, I was like, no, absolutely not. There's no way that I can do this. I am not equipped. I don't know how. I don't know all the things. I'm not an encyclopedia. Like, I'm just all the things that started rushing through my mind. I'm not smart enough. I'm not brave enough. What if I do it wrong? What if I mess him up for life? Like, so many things, so many fears flooded in. And he was like, just talk to one of your friends and see what it's like. And then we can go from there. God bless my husband. The ever stable, like ever, here's to take it down 3 notches, and then maybe one more if you can. So in the parking lot, I hung up with my husband, and I immediately called one of my friends that homeschooled, and I let her know. She kind of already knew that what we were going through and things, because I had been asking friends to pray for us and just help us to make the right decision for schooling for my son, thinking that God would show us the right school, and whatever doors he opened, that would be the school that he would attend. Little did I know the door that he would open would be homeschooling. So I spoke with her, and she was like, come over tomorrow. Come over tomorrow, and we'll just hang out, and you can see what I do with the kids. So at this time, my son was still at the last school year wasn't over yet, so he was still with the teacher that we were really in close communication with, and she kind of was becoming, she was becoming sort of a sounding board, and I was letting her know, well, this is what this school said, and this is what the district said, and this is what this happened. And she also was becoming frustrated. So I could see that I was not justified, but that I wasn't so crazy for feeling the frustration from the different stories. And so, so when I was mentioning all the different options to his teacher, I was a little hesitant at first to mention homeschooling to her, because we were just looking into it, and I wasn't sure if she would feel like maybe I was saying that the public school was doing not a great job, or that I was speaking poorly, because that wasn't where my heart was at all. We had, up until this point, very, very exceptional teachers, and we absolutely loved our experience. It was only when we had started moving and talking that we were getting all these different stories, and most of them were not from teachers. And honestly, I can understand there's just so many children and so many things coming in, and sometimes by the end of the day, a lot of these workers may, like I said, I've caught them at a bad day, or I may have sounded too anxious, and you just never know what the other person is going through. But what I knew was that God was maybe pointing us to a different direction. So the next day, I went over to see my friend, and I kind of watched a little of her school, of how she schooled with her children. Now, at that time, she was what I would call maybe a very eclectic, almost bordering unschooling type. So what I saw was not like desk lined up. It was nothing like public school, nothing like what I knew, where you had desks all lined up and you just had school in one area. She did have a larger family, and so she had some kiddos that were doing school. As we were talking over coffee, they would run up and ask her a question about a workbook. She had one kiddo that was doing school outside in the backyard, and I just thought that was so great, and it was so neat. And as she began talking to me about homeschooling and the different options and the different kind of ways that you can do it, at first, honestly, it was a little overwhelming. But as she was talking, her kids would come up and would talk to me too, and they would be like, we love it, and it's so great, and just really expressing how much they were enjoying homeschooling. And she didn't ask them to come up to me. I didn't seek them and ask them how they enjoyed it. They just heard our conversation and popped over and wanted to give input, and I really enjoyed that. I really liked that one, they felt comfortable enough to sharing their thoughts honestly with us, but two, that they were interested and wanted to share. Now, my son was friends with some of her kids, and so they were super excited because they were part of a larger co-op type group, and so they were super excited to have the possibility of seeing more of him and getting to hang out more, because at this time he was in public school and not able to join all the daytime activities. So from there, I kind of came back. I brought it up to my husband. I do remember that my friends and I, we were praying on it, trying to just, like I said, figure out what the right thing for us and for my family would be. And that is kind of when we decided we would go ahead and homeschool. I did eventually end up telling his teacher, and she was thrilled for us. She thought that my son would do great with it. I let her know that we were going to go ahead and join this larger co-op group. And I can only say that it all worked out so perfectly because God's hand was in it. It's not to say we didn't have a lot of bumps and nerves and frustration, because we certainly did. He was entering first grade, and so at that time, there are some really big fundamentals that you're teaching your child, and it can be scary. I still had fears where, what if I mess this up so badly? But one of the things that my friend said to me that day, and one of the things I tell homeschool mamas any chance I get, is that no one loves your child more than you. And no one wants what's absolutely best for him or her more than you. So if you love them so much and you want the absolute best for them, you are going to do the research, you are going to do the job, you are going to figure out what is best for your child and go with it. And that is equip all enough. I am also incredibly blessed to say that I have God on my side, and that I could not have done this journey without him. I was not brave enough to start this journey without him encouraging us and just kind of opening the door to this, because I don't honestly think that I would have sought it out on my own. The way that it just kind of happened, all to me points to God. That my husband would mention it, that homeschooling would come from my husband instead of me. The fears that I had, and the way that we just kind of kept walking with God on this journey. And here we are 9 years later continuing with it. In the very beginning of our homeschool career, we just kind of said, we'll take it year by year. We had a lot of family members that didn't understand our choice and were not too thrilled. I think that maybe they had a lot of fears in me that I could do the job. So it was a little hard, and I'm incredibly grateful that I had that community of friends at church to kind of encourage me and pray with me, pray over me for this journey. We did say we would take it year by year and see if it worked, because like I said, I was still scared, and I was not getting a lot of support from family. So it kind of just put everybody's mind at ease when I said, well, we'll just try it for this year. And if it works for this year, maybe we'll do it next year. But if it doesn't, we could always go back to school. And so we did that for a couple of years. And then I can't even tell you which year we finally hit where we were like, I don't see that this is never not going to work. I mean, God willing, we continue to have these freedoms where we can homeschool. This is the journey that we felt that we are going to continue to take. So while we were homeschooling my oldest, clearly I ended up having 2 more babies after him, and we just rolled right into homeschooling with these babies too. We were still in that kind of phase. By the time we had our second, when we had my daughter, we were still in that phase where we're like, we'll take it year by year. By the time we had my third, I think we were pretty concrete in the fact that this was the best choice for us and my family. When my oldest, now this year, he's entering high school, we did have a lot of questions if we were going to put him into public school, especially because we moved out of state. But we had a really great talk about homeschooling and what he liked and what we needed to work on maybe, and just a lot of insightful things that he brought to mind that he didn't even know he really enjoyed about homeschooling. And I don't want to share too much because a lot of it was private between him and I, but I'm just so blessed and so incredibly thankful that he enjoys homeschooling and that he doesn't feel like I've messed him up for life, or he doesn't feel like he's missing out on anything. So we are continuing on, God willing, for as long as we can. But that's kind of a little bit a peek into our homeschooling journey and how we all began. I'd love to know yours. Do you homeschool? How did you kind of get into it? What was the spark for you? And if you have any other questions for us in regards to our journey, or is there something you'd like to know more about, please leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to either respond to it or maybe make another video if there's enough questions on it or if it needs a longer explanation. Thanks so much for joining me on this little chat. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and then if you are not already, please be sure to subscribe, and if you'd like, hit that little bell notification so that you can be notified and you won't miss anything.